This is the Lanshan 2 tent. I bought it to do the Scottish National Trail I'm going to tell you why, in my opinion, this is the most unbelievable value for money tent that is out there, and is easily comparable to tents 2-3 times the price. So first of all, a little bit about the Scottish National Trail. So it took me 30 days to do, so I was backpacking 30 days. Of those 30 days I had 3 in B&Bs, 1 in a bothy, 4 at campsites, and the other 22 were wild camping in this tent. So it got plenty of use on that trip in loads and loads of conditions, and to be honest with you, it was an absolute revelation. So before I started the Scottish National Trail, I really needed a new tent. I had a Force 10 Zenon which was showing signs of wear, so I didn't really want to use that. And I almost bought a Hilleberg, an Aris tent, but the price was just, I couldn't justify it. It was 700 quid. I've been on YouTube, seen these things, and I managed to pick this one up for 95 quid. 95 quid. It is unbelievable value for 95 quid. So I'm going to tell you, it's not a perfect tent. I'm going to tell you the things that I've absolutely loved about this tent and having it with me on the Scottish National Trail. So let's first of all talk about the kind of quality of the materials that you're getting with this tent. Fly sheet, absolutely outstanding. Alright, and I'll talk to you later on about why it was outstanding. This stone flap works on the tent really well. There was not a hint at any point of water getting anywhere in this tent over the whole trip. Not a droplet. This stone flap works brilliantly, even when it has driving rain going right into it. I thought initially what worried me is when you've got a tent like this, it's completely reliant on tension. That's the only thing that's holding it up. It's not a freestanding or a semi-freestanding tent. You're relying on tension completely in terms of being able to pitch the tent and hold it out. So it means it's going to put a huge amount of force onto these tying points. They were brilliant. I mean, there's not there is the art when I bought it brand new, you know, and it's had what, 26 days use. So the stitching to go with these tying points is absolutely first rate. There's not a hint anywhere of any problems with stitching at all on this tent. So for me, the quality of the materials on the outside and the way it's being stitched and put together, absolutely spot on. Even here, look at this here. Yeah, there was no water ingress at all through any of these seams at all. Alright, even with driving rain, absolutely top notch. So let's move to the inside. I love this feature on this tent, the fact that you can just drop these doors back. You can do it with all 4 sides. So on some of the evenings where we pitched up and you had a nice evening view, you could just put these doors back and just sit and watch the view. It was absolutely great. And as you look here into the inner tent, here I've got the 3-season version with the full mesh door. It even meant as well that there were a couple of evenings where, you know, if the midges were bad, I could still have this door open with the midget head up, have a nice breeze blowing through the tent. So, love this flexibility. I mean, you can have the whole thing back. Love the flexibility, right, of the way you could arrange the tent. Right, next, as you go inside, I mean, the space on the inside, for me individually, well, I was just using it myself, and I was on my own in this tent for 20 out of the 30 days. There were a couple of occasions where I had to share it with my wife Judith, and then on towards the end of the Scottish National Trail I was joined by my friend Toby. But for the majority of this trip I was on my own, and it's just palatial. You know, I could put my sleeping mat up here, could bring my rucksack in, have everything inside. But even with 2 of you, as you can see, there's enough space for 2 full-size mats, and easily enough space in this vestibule area, all right, to put all your kit. So you've got to remember the tent with its bag, I weighed it, it's 1,050 grams. It's a kilo. It weighs a kilo. The amount of space that you're getting for a kilo is just unbelievable. And then, of course, these you can tie back the doors as well. So some of those occasions where there were no midges, you could tie back the door as well, which is great again for just sitting in your tent if you want to do a bit of cooking here. Again, you could open the tent right out, have a breeze coming through. Just a great design. All right. Now, when I first saw this ground sheet, I thought, oh, should they have bought the footprint that goes with it? It looks a bit flimsy. I'm not sure this is going to last, you know, very well. If we get anything like stony ground or a bit rough ground, it's going to probably get punctured dead easy. Are you kidding? Absolutely. No, this ground sheet was fantastic, and I pitched it on a couple of occasions. Once on some really rough heather. And if you've ever seen heather, it's got those really stick bits that stick up and prod through. Not a hint of anything going through this ground sheet at all. There was another night where I pitched it on some quite stony ground. I tried to get as many of the stones out as I could, but I was slightly concerned about it. No, this was really resilient, and as far as waterproofing goes, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So again, I keep going back to that, and I can't believe it. 95 quid, the quality of the materials, absolutely fantastic. Now, talked about this this tent, material wise, absolutely superb. All right. The only thing as I did do is I made some slight changes to the tent. So I'd say thank you to, was it a Shropshire lad? I think that was the name of the video, the person that I watched, who showed me this little modification here to make with the doors. So rather than on the original, it has like the guy line coming down here and then going back into here to tie the two together. I kind of separate them out and I've used a little carabiner, all right, with some paracord, right, just to separate the two. And that really worked well. And I like the fact that making this a bit longer for me gives it a bit more strength across the ridge of the tent, across that ridge line. So I like the fact that by making this longer you could get that ridge line really tight. So I think that modification is a really good one. Now the tent comes with these pegs, very lightweight pegs, and I know that some people had expressed some concerns. I've seen it on YouTube, people expressing concerns about these pegs. I thought they worked actually really well. Never had any issues with the pegs at all. I did, however, because I was going to Scotland, I did take some of them out and use for these two ones that are holding the ridge line. I used 2 stakes. So obviously those are a little bit more heavy. I think my pegs in total weighed about 150 grams. So I just felt that having those just gave a little bit more security, and I'll talk about why I thought that was a good idea in a minute. Now let's talk about some of the limitations of this tent, because it isn't perfect, all right, and there are some things, all right, that you are going to have to put up, I think, a little bit compared to some other tents. The first of all, fundamental number one, is the design of the tent. Just this design, all right. I found particularly early on in my walk, where we had some kind of cold nights where there was quite a lot of condensation. You do get a lot of build-up of condensation in this tent, all right. I was more aware of it in this tent than perhaps some of the previous tents that I've owned. But condensation did tend to build up very easily. Now you can mitigate that to some extent by raising the pole up higher, so it lifts everything higher up off the ground to get a little bit more ventilation through. Or conversely, you can drop it right down when the wind's really strong. All right, but condensation on the inner of the tent was a little bit of an issue. However, saying that, I've got to say that there was never a hint of condensation on the inside of the tent at all. So any condensation that formed on the inside ran off and didn't touch the inner mesh of the tent at all. So at all times that inner stayed completely dry. And what I found was on the morning, usually the best thing to do before I put the tent away was I had a towel with me. I'd give the tent a quick wipe with the towel, all right, and that seemed to work pretty well. But you are going to get, I think, more condensation just through the design of the tent. The second thing is the actual design of the zips. So I'll just move this around here. Put that there. It uses these zips. You do need two hands to be able to operate them. Okay, you can't operate them with one hand, and particularly this bit up here is a bit faffy. So again, it's a very, very minor thing, I would say, but perhaps having, you know, your two zips on each side is probably preferable, I think, to just having one, but it's a minor thing. Now, my biggest concern using this tent on the Scottish National Trail, what worried me was the size of the panels on the tent make it very susceptible to wind. So I was a bit worried about how stable it was going to be if it got really, really windy. Didn't need to worry. So when I'd actually finished the Scottish National Trail, we had to get a bus from a little town. So we walked back down the coast, pitched the tent on the coast. It was pretty breezy then when we pitched it. What we didn't know, because we hadn't seen the weather forecast, was there was actually a storm moving in. So I'll just let my friend Toby at the time, who described right what happened when that storm had passed.
So that was without doubt the stormiest night that I have ever spent in a tent. At times it was violent. Oh, sorry. At times it was violent. It definitely felt like a washing machine. The shaking of the whole tent was incessant. The noise was deafening. There are loud, rolling, crashing waves about 50 yards from us, and you couldn't hear them most of the night. But the tent has stayed up. We were warm and dry all night. We got probably between us at the most an hour's sleep. It's now 6 o'clock, the wind is abating, and we're about to get up.
So this tent was absolutely unbelievable. It was getting battered on this side here by winds that I don't know, must have been 50-60 miles an hour constantly, with driving rain going into it. Nothing got through that storm flap. My rucksack was on the other side of this, stayed dry. No ingress of water at all. It was unbelievable. So although we didn't get any sleep at all, it did keep us warm and dry. So I think for me, summing up this tent, I don't think it's a 4-season tent. Alright, it will stand up to really strong winds, alright, but you're not going to sleep. You know, there are better designs out there, okay, if the conditions are really, really windy. But for a 3-season, lightweight, backpacking tent, for 95 quid, it's a no-brainer. There's nothing out there comparable to this. I just think it's the bargain of the year. So, as I say, it's going to be my go-to tent for 3 seasons until it falls apart. Now, any other comments, anything that wants to add in the notes, drop me something in there, okay? Anything you want me to give you any more information about, please feel free to do so. But yeah, I love this tent.